Hi guys! I hope you're having a good week. I'm pretty excited to get talking about chapter 15 with you guys about ethics because this has kind of interested me for a little while. I took a philosophy course with Lee Allen last year, and I learned just so much about even defining ethics and what ethics means day to day for us, or as a society, or as just an individual, a 19-year-old girl in college, um, or like going into the work field. What are ethical practices? Um, and so I think that it would be good to start out by just looking at what ethics are. And according to our book in chapter 15, ethics is a system of principles or morality, a code of conduct. It is the values and rules of life recognized by an individual, group, or culture, seeking guidelines to human conduct and what is good or bad, right or wrong. So we live in a fairly, I don't know, we live in a different society, I guess. But like things like killing, lying, stealing, these we would deem unethical, or would sway in our moral compasses, I suppose. Um, so it's just interesting that when we look at something um, like lying, for instance, that isn't ethical. It's wrong to lie. But there's a lot of gray areas. Well, I lied because it was good for my paycheck. I lied because it was protecting my family. I lied because it was this, that, or the other thing. I feel like everything in life is circumstantial, and even ethics can be, I think, which is probably not a good thing to say, but kind of true. So I just think it's an interesting subject because even though we have ethics and codes of conduct, there's a lot of gray area as far as right and wrong, black and white. We do see a lot of gray, and I think sometimes journalism is a good place to find that gray area, um, because a lot of times with writing and things, there is an element of deceit, which isn't not okay, not a lot of times, or maybe not super common, but it's something to be aware of and to be careful of, I guess, because we are all human. Journalists are human, and nobody's code of ethics or moral compass is pointing north all the time. We all have our agendas and our successes that we are seeking, and the means to get there are sometimes unethical, which it's sad to think about, but it's kind of the truth. But as far as looking into journalism, as far as like credibility and things like that on an ethical standpoint, I think that we can be pretty lucky and find some sources that are very that advocate for the truth and don't have necessarily selfish agendas, with unethical means to gain success, or things like that. But things I didn't think about when journalism and ethics came about, but like friendship. Uh, who would have thought that conflict of interest and things like that would be an issue? But it definitely is. It plays a role. So I thought that that was fairly interesting to read about in this chapter. Um, I don't know. It was just interesting to see, like, one of the examples that was given in the book about the against gun violence. Um, Boss wrote that he is used to the bias of the press against firearms, but his main objection is that Decker, things like that, politics, that specific example. Um, Journalists can use stories to tweak them and twist them for their agendas, writing to against gun violence, or writing to increase, you know, NRA, like National Rifle Association, yeah, like NRA, morale, or things like that. Um, there can be a level of deceit involved. Maybe they aren't intending to be necessarily unethical, but the means of their research and the means of their writing aren't always, you know, black and white. We've got a little bit of a gray area. So I think that is kind of eye-opening. Talking about ethics as a whole is like a subject that you could go on for hours and hours and hours. And I think that it's very interesting. So I'll be looking for some posts. It will be a fun week to get to learn a little bit about you all, I suppose. But thank you for your time and for listening to me babble on for quite a bit. And I hope that you all have a good week.